Welcome, I'm Thomas Porteus and you're watching The World Report. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines. President Trump urges neighbouring countries to just clean out Gaza by accepting more Palestinian refugees. He also reverses Biden's pause on heavy bomb deliveries, raising concerns about escalating regional tensions. Citing a breach by Hamas, Israel halts plans for a prisoner return and continues its military presence near Lebanon. Both Lebanese leadership and France's president have condemned the escalation, calling for a swift de-escalation. Offering to help settle the war, Trump announces he has spoken with Ukrainian President Zelensky and intends to speak with Russian President Putin soon. Observers remain cautious about his potential influence on ongoing peace efforts. Pyongyang says its newly tested cruise missile system is a show of force against American provocations. The international community watches closely, fearing increased instability in the region. Tensions are rising in Gaza as Israeli forces fire on Palestinians trying to return to their homes in the north, killing at least one person, reports say. Israel blames Hamas for delaying the release of a female civilian hostage, while Hamas accuses Israel of stalling the ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, 4 female Israeli soldiers abducted on October the 7th have been released and reunited with their families. Hamas displayed strength during the handover, signaling defiance to Israel. In return, Israel freed 200 Palestinian prisoners, including those serving life sentences. The ceasefire deal remains fragile amid the ongoing dispute over hostages. We will now move on to a discussion about this situation in the Middle East. We are joined by guest Aaron Levarko, Israeli television and radio correspondent, live from Israel. We are also joined by Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, and Professor Madhav Nalapat. Aaron, I wanted to come to you first. I was wondering, what is Israel's strategy in preventing residents of North Gaza from travelling back to their homes, most of which reports say are destroyed anyway from the conflict?
Well, the strategy is simple: security. If we can feel that there is secure borders, then we would have done it yesterday. This is not about us moving into the Gaza Strip, taking it over, settling there, although there are some people that are calling for that. They are saying we pulled out in 2004, 2005. We gave the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority, and in response, we got tens of thousands of rockets. So there are people saying we're not going to trust the Palestinian people again. But I don't think that is, certainly it's not Donald Trump's vision. He has spoken with the Saudi Arabians, the Mohammed bin Salman, and I just read a couple of days ago that Mohammed bin Salman, his goal, and probably the bigger picture here, if I can say, is Donald Trump, in my opinion, he wants to get the Saudi Arabians included in the Abraham peace accords. And once they come in, Saudi said just a couple of days ago that what they want to do, they want to try and help overthrow Hamas and make the Gaza Strip a demilitarized zone so that a new Palestinian leadership will live side by side at peace with the Israelis. So if that's what Mohammed bin Salman has said, and this was, by the way, at the time that he met with Donald Trump, our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in 2 weeks' time, he's going to Washington. He will meet with Trump, and the Saudi Arabians, Gaza, they are going to be on the table as the key points of discussion. So Israeli military and political plan at the moment It's not per se to stop the residents moving back to the north. That's not the number one goal. The number one goal is to make sure that our northern border is secure.
Okay, I want to move on to Gautam Mukherjee now. I was wondering, Gautam, it seems like this is the second time hostages have been released and they have been stalled once again. Problems have occurred. How does this reported violation affect the broader ceasefire agreement, and what are the potential repercussions for both sides?
Well, I think it'll be revived again soon enough. There have been small violations on both sides. There were further strikes, Israeli strikes in Gaza. And the Hamas have also not stuck to exactly the letter of the peace agreement. This will be ironed out because I think this process will be completed. There aren't very many Israeli hostages there. And each time, for example, in the latest exchange, 200 Palestinians were sent back in exchange for 4 Israeli soldier women hostages who were returned held in health and spirit. They're talking about how they were restricted on various issues, but like bathing and so on. But they have come back whole and hearty. So this, I think, will be revived. But, I was listening to Aaron just now, and we were talking about the Abrahamic Accords involving Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, UAE, that's excellent. But until you sort Iran out, Iran is the supplier of armaments to the whole region, including the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthi, Syria as it was, perhaps Syria under the new leadership as well. So Iran has to be tackled as part of the strategic developments now.
Aaron Lavarco, how are people in Israel feeling about both the hostage return and how the ceasefire agreement is turning out so far?
Not an easy question to answer. Many different emotions and feelings. Of course, we're happy to see our girls back home. And, on the face value, I agree with my brother Gautam that they seemed relatively happy. Don't forget, there's a lot of adrenaline flowing at times like this. But I can tell you that they're going to have to go through some pretty serious therapy, counsel, the trauma, 470 plus days in tunnels, being treated as slaves. So there's mixed emotions. There's happiness, there's joy, there's light in the times of darkness. But there's also anger and frustration seeing 200 Palestinian terrorists. And they were terrorists, that's why they were in prison. They were terrorists with blood on their hands, being not only released, but being released to a celebration of the people in Gaza. Not an easy thing for us to see, and especially the families who have lost relatives, who've been maimed for life as a result of some of these terrorist activities. Very difficult.
Gautam Mukherjee, it's those 200 prisoners that I want to ask about. How is this going to phase in the future? I mean, 200 designated terrorists have now been released back to their terrorist organization.
Well, Israel is holding or was holding about 8,000 prisoners, and some of them are minor, miscreants, stone throwers and the like. They may be politically aligned with the Hamas, but really they haven't done any heinous crime, no murders and things of that order. Of course, there are a few who are out of the 8,000, I'm saying in context of that, a few who are, uh, fully confirmed terrorists with blood on their hands, which is why Israel is quite happy to give large numbers of these people back in return for 4 people. And altogether, there are some 30 to be returned, and they'll probably hand over a couple of thousand Palestinians by the time they're through. No great harm done. These people are, if you like, bargaining chips in the hands of the Israeli authorities, and most of them are, in context, relatively harmless.
Aaron, what do international mediators or neighbouring countries playing in attempting to restore or maintain the ceasefire? I'm talking mainly, of course, about President Donald Trump in this question.
Hey, it took 15 months of Biden's efforts that produced absolutely no fruit. It took Donald Trump a few days. So, actions speak louder than words. He came in and within a matter of days, he wagered a deal. So, incredible. And he speaks the language of the Middle East. He knows the language of the surrounding nations of Israel. And he talks tough. And they respect that to some degree. So, his involvement, anyone else apart from Trump, Qatar, they have also been part of this as well. It looks like the Saudis are getting involved as well. Can I just make a comment, though, about, the ceasefire being, the exchange and the ceasefire being broken? Let me tell you, it was signed on the day that we would hand over a certain amount of prisoners and that the Hamas would hand over a certain amount of our captives, and they were to write the names on the list. 2 days before, yesterday, we got the list and they had changed the list. So I don't want to sound like I'm blaming and pointing the finger here. We did not break the agreement. Hamas delivered 4 names. They were supposed to have delivered 5 and they didn't. So as a response to them breaking the agreement, we also deliberated whether we should change the status as well. So I think putting us on the same level and saying, well, both sides have broken, things need to be brought out in the bigger picture of what really happened there.
Gautam Mukherjee, in what ways do these ceasefire violations impact the lives of people, the daily lives of people living in Gaza and in nearby Israeli communities?
Well, in Gaza, personally, I have very little. I mean, the human cost is is horrendous, but they brought it upon themselves. They were trusted by the Israelis to run their own lives all those years from 2004 onwards. Instead, they rearmed, they built hundreds of kilometers of tunnels. They used their own people as human shields. They used the hospitals for, safe houses. And in the end, they went in and captured 200 people just like that, who were partying and were totally not, aware of anything particularly wrong. And some of these 200 people were Palestinians who live in Israel. So, that they are suffering is obvious, but the Palestinians handed over all authority to the Hamas, and this is why they're suffering. And if they continue to do this, this cannot end. So demilitarization is a worthwhile goal. Can they accomplish it, though? It is easier said than done. How do you monitor tens of thousands of people, in fact, hundreds of thousands of people who live in a very dense manner in the Gaza Strip to be demilitarized. They weren't demilitarized ever. Under the PLO, Yasser Arafat, they were militarized.
Gautam Mukherjee, I'm very sorry for having to cut you off. We have run out of time for that segment. Thank you, Aaron Levarco and Gautam Mukherjee, for joining us in that discussion. We will now move to some more news updates. US President Donald Trump steps into the spotlight again, aiming to mediate the Ukraine war. With Putin open to talks and Zelensky firm on Kiev's inclusion, could this reshape global diplomacy? Let's take a look at this report.
US President Donald Trump has reignited hopes for a possible resolution to the ongoing Ukraine war. Speaking to reporters on Saturday, Trump revealed he plans to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin soon in a bid to settle the conflict. This comes as Putin, in a rare gesture, expressed Russia's willingness to engage in talks with the United States. In an interview with Russian state TV, Putin said his government is ready for negotiations on a wide range of issues. Trump has been vocal about his belief that the war could have been avoided altogether. He repeated claims that under his administration, the conflict would never have broken out. Trump added that both Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky desire an end to the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky insists Ukraine must be part of any negotiations.
Виключити Україну неможливо з будь-якого перемовного майданчику. Або цей переговорний майданчик не буде мати реальний результат, або буде мати тільки результати політичні.
Putin praised Trump as pragmatic and suggested the crisis might not exist if Trump had remained president. With global attention, Trump's bid to mediate could shift dynamics, but major hurdles remain. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let us now take a look at some news updates from South America. Colombia's government announced a $700,000 reward for information leading to the capture and conviction of 4 leaders of the National Liberation Army. The reward follows President Gustavo Petro's decree granting clemency powers to restore order in a region plagued by violence between the ELN and the guerrilla dissidents. The president of Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council, Leslie Voltaire, described the Trump administration's decisions to freeze aid, deport migrants, and block refugees as catastrophic for Haiti. This came after he met with Pope Francis at the Vatican. Voltaire appealed for support, stating the Pope loves Haiti and is eager to help, highlighting the country's need for assistance. Argentina's economy grew by 0.1% year-on-year in November, marking its first expansion in 6 months, according to official data. This growth surpassed analysts' expectations, who had predicted a 0.6 contraction. The positive figures suggest a potential recovery for Argentina's struggling economy, which has been impacted by President Javier Milei's austerity measures to control inflation and stabilize the nation. A court in El Salvador sentenced 3 youths to 5 years in prison and placed 5 others on probation after they were filmed making gang signs inside a school. The youths aged 12 to 15 were arrested following the TikTok video linked to the MS-13 gang. This comes amid President Nayib Bukele's tough crackdown on gangs, which has seen over 84,000 arrests. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro issued a decree granting clemency powers to restore order in the violent Catatumbo region near Venezuela. The region, where a deadly turf war between rebel groups has caused at least 80 deaths and displaced 36,000 people. The decree allows curfews, traffic restrictions, and other measures normally requiring congressional approval, marking a significant escalation in response to the conflict. And that is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more international news updates.